When you're making a movie, writing a script, do you take into account the fact that different kinds of audiences exist and that your script has to talk to all of them, the so-called A, B, and C centers, NRI?
I'm in the mainstream filmmaking. Now I want to make a film which will reach as many as possible. So I want to talk in a language which is, which I can easily communicate with. But I also want to say what I want to say, not what they necessarily want to hear. So it is this combination, this intersection that you're constantly, attempting, trying to tell what you have to say in a language which, which is easily, reachable.
When you say language, what do you mean?
Everything, the format with which it comes, the songs with which it comes, so that it doesn't, like what you put it, doesn't alienate them, doesn't look like you're talking to them in Sanskrit.
You've often said that I'm part of the audience, and if I like to see a film today, the audience will like it too. Given the kind of films that become blockbusters today, do you still feel you're part of this audience?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the time earlier also, there have been blockbusters, which I could not relate to at all. They will always be there. There will always be these huge blockbusters, and there will always be these really fantastic small film that will be there. So you have to find a path which you're comfortable with and which you think you can deliver consistently.
Even though you have the markets in mind, you basically say, this is interesting to me, I find this interesting, I'm going to work on this.
As a base, as a knot for the film, as a soul of the film, yeah, it has to work for you. Otherwise, you don't take it up at all. It means 2 years of your life, you better be interested in it, okay. Something that you think you can do well. That's when you take it up. Tell it in a fashion which is entertaining, but still honest to your original thought. So it's a balance that you hit.
Do you think that you've kind of stopped worrying about whether the market will accept a certain thing?
No, honestly, you're constantly worried about it. I mean, that is what makes you decide whether to do a film or not.
Right.
I mean, whether you take Agni Natchatram, it is about, two half brothers and their emotion. Those are genuine, can be made into a very, very hard-hitting film too. It is just that it is presented in a fashion which is entertaining. Similarly with OK Kanmani, it is a genuine film. It is not a flippant film, and it is not just for for commercial purposes.
How long do ideas stay with you before you start working on them? Let's take Kaatru Veliyidai. Roughly, when did the idea start germinating in you?
Maybe 5 years back.
5 years ago?
Yeah. And I haven't done much about it. It just stayed as an idea, and it didn't. I mean, it's a thought. It can do it.
Like, let's take OK Kanmani. When you say thought, you mean let's do a live-in relationship kind of movie. Is that the thought you're talking about?
Yeah, it could take different shapes. I mean, in the sense, it could be just an idea. I mean, for example, the concept of Roja came out of an actual kidnap that happened. That was the starting point, but it stayed that way for several years before we could flesh it out into a film. We needed to sit on the script, and you think that there is something in it which you want to explore, something in it which you would like to put your head in, and go slightly deeper.
So since you bring the personal element, as in you want to explore, you've made a lot of issue films. The issues there, are they what you think the film demands, or is there a Mani Ratnam in there saying, this is what I think about the situation in Bombay, this is what I think about live-in relationships?
No, I don't think your platform is just to tell, give out public speeches. It's not here, this is what I have to say about this. It's not that. It is that it is a topic that you like to dwell in, and then you choose characters for the topic, and then the characters lead you. You will invest yourself inside it, but you will invest through characters.
When you start with this idea that you just said, like a core, whatever, when you start sketching it out, do you say, let me start exploring the idea and I'll find the story as I go along? Or do you say, do you get a beginning, a middle and end first and then work around that skeleton?
Sometimes it works that way. When you take a film like Mani Ratnam, for example, you knew from the start where it's going to end. Whereas you take the next film like Nayagan,
right.
When I had no clue how the film was going to end.
Right.
It had just a character and a backdrop that you had, and you just went with it and hoped that it will, culminate in an effective way.
So apart from being the writer and the director, you're also the producer on your films. You've been a producer for a while now. How much of the producer comes out in you while you're shooting? Do you say, I mean, let's say, you know, your shot doesn't get over, you have to go for an evening call sheet, which is more expensive. Do you keep thinking?
No, I think any filmmaker has to work within economics. I mean, has to be aware of the budget. Can't just say I'm creating this masterpiece, so I'll just go on and on and on. It is no different for me when I did film for others. Actually, I feel when I did for others, I would be a lot more careful. I would bargain a lot more with the actors. Now I won't do that. It's my film, though. I don't do all those. The producer is I'm just a default. I mean, it's the last thing that I look at.
No, given your background and all that.
All the more reason. It's the most uninteresting. It's what I don't want to do. What I end up doing this because it's convenient. I can choose. I'm not answerable,
right.
And I can choose where and when to spend.
Would it interest you to do like a very niche one actor film, like let's say we just saw Trapped recently, something like that? Would that interest you?
There are several things that maybe interest you, which you think you can make into film, but you don't do because it's not mainstream. You'll not have that wide an audience for that kind of a film. But as a film goer, as a filmmaker, you're fascinated by it. So you just leave it as ideas and just get on with it. But there are two things to it. One is that your ability to do it, and there's a theater that which can release it. That is one thing. But whatever you've done before becomes your foundation for the next one. So if, for example, Rajnikant is a Rajnikant, people expect that kind of thing. He cannot afford to just do a film which is really, really niche, So he has a responsibility to deliver. So when you take a big actor, you need to know that they have following. So if you're planning something really small, it should work within that space alone, and you should be aware that you will be able to go there and then be able to make a bigger idea also. It should not be at the cost of one another.
Do you think that mainstream has expanded again in terms of what
think
people are willing to watch?
Yeah, I think it's a different kind of audience that are expanding it. I think definitely, at least as far as Tamil is concerned, I think there's been a tremendous growth. There's been really offbeat themes which have worked very well, which have opened up the market, and there are big, huge films which collects huge money, but at the same time there are films which are smaller which are also doing well. I'm not talking of just niche films, I'm talking of these filmmakers who are doing different things which are doing well, like probably Jigar Dandad, Pizzas and Jigar Dandas, and Mishkin's films.
Finally, if you were to single out one quality that someone needs to be a filmmaker.
Perseverance.
Perseverance?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought you'd say passion.
Maybe perseverance more, in terms of getting, passion came, imagination came, hard work, everything's there. But I think perseverance, it's so easy to settle, so easy to say, okay, this should do, to just take that last step is what keeps you going, you should have the strength to take that extra step. That the rest of the world, the standard is way up there. That people before you have also set standards which are very, very high. So there's a lot more to reach for. There's so much more that can be done, that should be done. So give it a shot.